And we're live.
Okay,
Good to be back.
good to be back.
So, Pablo, I want to talk about ancient Egypt.
Oh,
I know it's a topic that you've been super interested in, and I'd love for you to open up with the pyramid having 8 sides instead of four.
correct. It's amazing. You know, ancient Egypt holds a lot of mysteries. And since I was a kid, I loved it. And so I started reading about it. And it's probably as of the last 15 or 20 years that I've read a lot more about it. And I really like it. And I'm passionate about it. And very few people know that the Great Pyramid of Egypt has 8 sides instead of four. Everybody thinks it has 4 sides, but it actually has 8 sides. And you can Google it, it'll tell you. And they're very precise, they're concave, and they're only visible um, twice a year
Hmm.
on the equinoxes. And it was actually discovered by chance when I think it was a military plane, was doing a survey and flew over the Great Pyramid of Egypt and saw that it actually had like a break in the middle of one of the faces. And so that when he landed, he shared that with some people, and everybody told him, no, 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 it can't be. But later on, it was discovered that it's not just on one face, but it's on all four. And now it's a proven fact because you can use computer, digital, whatever it is, graphing, and it will give it to you exactly what degrees and so forth. And it's actually 8 sides. It's amazing.
Amazing. Which pyramid is that one? Is that
The Great Pyramid of
the Great
Giza.
Pyramid?
Yeah, the big one. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, some people say that that happened by chance, but there have been an extensive number of architects that have been interviewed, and they say, no way.
Hmm.
There's absolutely no way that having that concave cut in the center would have been by chance. Whoever engineered the pyramids had to have that all along in mind because it's a tremendous task. I mean, nobody knows how they were built to begin with, and to build a four-face pyramid would be a lot easier than do an eight-sided one. And so, I mean, so I believe him. Whoever put that together had that in mind from the very beginning, and they were just geniuses, mathematicians.
Oh, amazing. I mean, and they align them with the stars, right? I mean, the pyramids are built in a way where they somehow align with the stars.
Yeah, they're like 1 degree off of true north. Less than 1 degree, actually, like 60 seconds of 1 degree off of true north. I may be off on this, but it's just an incredible, incredible monument.
Yeah.
And this thing has got 2.5 million rocks. It weighs 6 million tons, and the footprint of it is, I believe, close to 13 football fields. So it's huge, and in order to align that to true north that way, it's incredible. You can talk to any art builder, that builds a regular 3 bedroom, 2 bath home today. They can't, that thing is going to be off a little bit.
Yeah.
And we have lasers and state of the art stuff. And we're building a 3 bedroom, two bath home, and they're off. Uh, the reason that it doesn't look too bad is because they're pretty good. And at the end of it, they make, some kind of, uh, you know, shift or a little bit of balance with whatever, but they're
Yeah.
off, and this is an incredible build. I think it's 481 feet tall. At the top, it's 481. At one point, it was the tallest building in the world until I think the Empire State Building was built. It's amazing.
Now, you have this fascination towards ancient Egypt, and you even got, you know, gifts of for your family, for different family members of books of the pharaohs and different
Yeah.
things like that. Why are you attracted to ancient Egypt? And I know you're into all kinds of history, but what is it about the Egyptians that attracts you?
Well, it's a mystery. And that in it by itself, I'm attracted to things that I don't understand. And no matter how much I study them, I don't have the comprehension to figure out how these people did this. They were excellent mathematicians. Um, and it's not just I. Over history, many people have been attracted.
Yeah.
All the way from the Greeks. The Greeks went and visited. Herodotus visited. I mean, Napoleon. Napoleon went over there, and he was just fascinated by it. Um, so there's many, many people throughout history that get fascinated. One of my things is I would love to go to Egypt and see the pyramids, because I think it would be like an awe type of rendering experience.
Yeah.
I have quite a few Egyptian friends, and because of the political situation over there, a couple of times I wanted to go, and my friends would tell me, "Hey, you know what? It's not safe at the moment. Wait a little bit. Wait a little bit." But if you're gonna wait all your life, at some point you got to pull the trigger. That's what I say all the time about everything. Um, but it's just fascinating because we really don't know. They think that the Great Pyramid is the tomb for the pharaoh. What's his name? I went blank on his name right now. But they only found one cartouche way high up in the king's chamber, and with his name on it. And so they think that there was a little bit of. I remember reading that all of a sudden this was found by the guy that was doing some research, and he was gonna apparently run a little bit out of funding in Kiev, and then all of a sudden this cartouche appears. So maybe there was a little bit of foul play there, you know. But there is tremendous evidence piling up that it wasn't a tomb, it's never been a tomb, and that is in the king's chamber. That's not a sarcophagus. It was something to hold something different. There's chemicals that are embedded in the walls, and it's built on an aquifer, and that produces energy. That energy can be harnessed and can be stored and then released.
And an aquifer is what? It's like a passage of water?
Yeah, it's like a river underneath. It's built on it. And as that river, as that water flows, that brings about energy. And then there's chemicals embedded in the wall where they think that they were able to, I know, hydrochloric sulfide or something like that. And so they can extract the hydrogen atoms and convert them into energy. So anyway, there's theories out there that think that the Great Pyramid of Egypt was actually a power plant.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's a few guys out there that say, look, what is the biggest structures that we build today in our society? The biggest structures are dams and power plants to, harness and generate power. And so some people, as crazy as it may sound, think that this was what the pyramid was for. Because if you think about it, there was no evidence ever that a pharaoh was in there. There are no hieroglyphics. So if it was a tomb, somebody would have put hieroglyphics in it. None whatsoever. And in the other tombs, when you do find mummies, they've got hieroglyphics everywhere and designs and all kinds of things on the walls. Here, there's nothing. Not one picture other than that one cartouche that I tell you about. So, and I like to believe that it was something different other than a tomb. And I think they, as time goes on, we will be able to realize that it was something like that.
Super interesting.
It's very interesting. And
Yeah.
some people think you're crazy if you talk about things like this, because when you go away from the norm, everybody's going to say, well, he's got a screw loose somewhere along the line.
Well, also how precisely that it's built. It makes you question, like, the tools what tools did they use and how did they make it so precise? They say that what the stones are to a point where you can't even put like a credit card in between them or something like that.
You
They're,
can't do a paper clip it. I mean, a credit card. I mean, the the precision of this building is so immense that if we were going to try to do it today, we would not be able to do it. It would take us a tremendous effort and an inconceivable amount of money, probably in the billions, to get something comparable to what this is. This is just an immense, tremendous building. And not only that, it's got so many things locked up in its structure. You know, it's got the dimensions of the Earth. If you start really looking into it, you know, the equinoxes, when you boil them down to seconds, I think it's 423,000 seconds on the days that day and night are equal. And if you measure, I believe, the base of the pyramid and multiply it times 423,000, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Okay? And on the longitudinal end, which is the polar radius of the Earth, it's off, I think, by 10 miles, which, when you take the entire scope of that mathematical equation, is like 98% accurate. So, you know, there's just so many things. So many things.
yeah, they were definitely, they had this knowledge. They were advanced. And I mean, to be able to build that. Why is the Pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid, why does that one get so much more attention than, because there's other ones, right? There's a whole area full of pyramids, the way I understand it.
There are pyramids in every continent of our
right,
Earth. Every
right.
continent
But
has
even in
pyramids.
Egypt, in that area, I believe there's more than just that
Oh
one.
yeah, I
Great
think
Pyramid.
Egypt has, like, if I'm not mistaken, over 100 pyramids. But there's a ton of pyramids everywhere. And now more discoveries are being made. In Bosnia, there's they have discovered a pyramid which has some kind of, when you get near to, see, because now they're discovering that they were built in specific areas of the Earth, which, you know, I don't want to butcher some of these things, but this is for fun anyway. I'm in no way or form an expert in anything. But there's
You're
the
just
Chinese.
a fan of it.
Yeah, the Chinese, it's a tremendous culture. And they had something called, I believe, dragon lines or ley lines. And these are energy lines that run through the Earth. And so these pyramids are built in specific areas of the Earth where the electromagnetic radiation of the Earth, or the electric, you know, concentrates. And it's really interesting. You've got, you know, the number pi keeps coming up, coming up, coming up, and then there's another one which is the magic number or something like this, where it keeps coming up in all the dimensions. And so, oh yeah, they're incredible. But Bosnia has a lot of pyramids, but there's one in particular that's being studied, and I think it's even bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Wow.
The problem is that governments get involved,
Yeah.
and they stop the research
Yeah.
somehow, or the people that are in charge of these, the research gets stopped. And it's a shame because, okay, they happen to be in Egypt, and the other one that I mentioned is in Bosnia, but Mexico has a ton of pyramids.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you look at them, Cambodia, if you look at them, they all have certain things that are similar, and yet they're thousands and thousands of miles away from each other. So how do these similarities occur? How do these generations, civilizations speak to each other.
Yeah.
If we weren't supposed to be traveling, or, you know.
Now, you have the Great Pyramid and the pyramids in Egypt that were built. When were the pyramids in Mexico built? Was it around the same time? Because I know that there's a pyramid in Mexico City, I believe, Teotihuacan,
Yeah.
right? Which stands for city built by the gods.
Can you imagine?
So the way I understand that is that the people who came, and I think it was the Aztecs who came to that area, arrived to that pyramid already built.
And used it and built on top of it. There's one in Puebla, right, where I think they're figuring out that there's like one building on top of another on top of. There's like
the pyramid of Cholula.
The pyramid of Cholula. There's like three, and I'll tell you what, these mysteries are compelling to everybody, and the proof is in the pudding, because Netflix came out with this new program with Graham Hancock, and it is by far the hottest thing on Netflix right now. It is absolutely exploding. People are watching it over and over and over again, and I've been watching Hancock for a number of years, and he's tremendous.
Yeah, no, I want to talk to you about Hancock and that Netflix.
He gets a little hot under the collar every now and then, but you gotta love the guy. I mean, they're pushing him so hard and speaking to his character and the person that he is. All he's trying to do is uncover something that might have happened.
Yeah, it seems like he's just trying to say that there's other possibilities. Before we jump into that, I looked it up. I just Googled it. And under history.com, it says, who built Teotihuacan? It's unknown who built the ancient city. Scholars once believed the ancient Toltecs did. However, the Toltec culture was from 900 to 900 to 1150 AD. And this is built apparently before that. So it's still unknown.
Look, there's a gentleman that just passed away. His name was Anthony West. I think he passed in 2019 or maybe 2020, but just recently, a few years back, okay? And he came up with the idea that the Sphinx, okay, the erosion that you see on the Sphinx of Giza in Egypt could not have been made by wind or sand, that it's a typical water erosion, okay? And they actually got, there's one geologist that really stuck his neck out, but they've brought several to study it. And it's plain as day that erosion is water erosion, okay? Not caused by wind or sand. That would be totally, completely different. So you've got geologists who are scientists. Geology is a science because it's a study of the rocks. The rocks don't lie, okay? The rocks don't lie. And they're studying this, and they're saying, hey, man, this is water erosion. Okay, well, then when was the last time that it rained a ton in Egypt?
Right, and that's the difference, right? It was rain, not river.
Correct.
It was rain erosion.
Correct. And then you have to, get that clock and turn it back thousands of years, and then that brings you into a whole...
Right, because if it was built, and there was no massive rains after that, you have to say, okay, well, maybe it was built prior to that.
And here's the thing that Anthony West brought up also, which made him so controversial, and to a certain extent they, discarded him. They pushed him aside because he didn't have a degree, I think. He wasn't an Egyptologist with a degree. But nevertheless, he was a tremendous human being, very, very sharp. But see, what he brought up was, look, the erosion on the Sphinx happened due to water. And it had to be thousands and thousands of gallons of rain that dropped down, which means that it was already built when that happened. Therefore, you can date back the erosion to a certain time, but you really can't date the day that it was built. So it got eroded thousands of years ago, but that means it was there already.
It wasn't built right before that.
No, they didn't build it right before so it could get eroded, and then here we go.
Yeah.
So it is, and to me, that's the kind of magic in all of this, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it is absolutely incredible, tremendous, and there's a lot more to our past than meets the eye. You know, there's histories all over the place of people hiding things, and
Oh.
I don't know why. Why would they do that? But
I was listening to, like, so they say the Vatican has all kinds of priceless artifacts and art and things from our past, right? And I was listening to, it was a Mike Tyson interview that he says, the things that I've seen that some of these people have, you know, that supposedly were lost, you know, they were lost in a museum or who knows what, thousands, you know, hundreds of years ago, or who knows how long. It's been lost for thousands of years. And he's like, you'd be amazed, you know. So some of these things are out there. Who knows what he's referring to specifically, but like you bring up a lot the Library of Alexandria.
yes,
So what happened there? It was burnt down.
it was
right?
burned down, and
Intentionally.
intentionally. I think that Julius Caesar burned it down. I think that's been established. You know, again, I'm no expert. I do this for fun. I've buried myself hours upon hours on some of this stuff because it's my passion. Just like Andrew likes coffee.
Right.
And he goes out and
Yeah.
you know,
It's
and
just something you
it's-
enjoy and
yeah,
but
and God bless him for it. I mean, he makes the best coffee in the world, but that's because of the integrity of the technique. So I do this for fun.
and do you know why they wanted to burn that and like supposedly that contained is it what all of our history?
It contained the history. I'm gonna go out on yes, the history of mankind, because what happened with the Library of Alexandria is that they had scribes, and any ship that came to the port, they confiscated every book from every ship, and then the scribes duplicated it, and then they gave you a copy of what you had, and so imagine that, imagine that, plus all the ancient knowledge that has been lost. I mean, you're talking about all these philosophers like Socrates and all these folks that were brilliant. The guy, the mathematician, everybody went there to study. It was like the in place to be. You know, if you were experimenting or coming up with new ideas in the world, and it had to have.
And that was where that was in Egypt?
Yes, in Alexandria. It's a
Because at
port.
one point in time Rome conquered Egypt, correct?
Yes. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, you know, I mean, these countries have been conquered over and over again by all kinds of people,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, if it wasn't the Persian, it was the Romans. If it wasn't the Romans, it was Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Throughout history, all these guys, I mean, just history in itself is tremendous. But these are monuments that have been left behind by people that we don't know who built them or when or how. Because there's no way that they can build that pyramid with the tools that they say, copper tools and chisels and this and that. You wouldn't be able to cut one rock with it, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I know I'm very critical about it. I have already my idea, you know, and my idea is that we don't know who built them and we don't know when,
We don't
but
know
they
when.
gotta be super old.
Yeah.
And like Hancock says, you know, we're a species with amnesia, and I believe that very much.
Yeah, Graham Hancock. So you introduced me to Graham Hancock,
Okay.
and you started looking into his books when? Because he's been around forever.
Oh, a long time. I've been following him for 20 years. Easy. Easy. And there's another guy that wrote Chariots of the Gods that I think I read that in high school. And Van Donigen, Eric Van Donigen. And, you know, he was in the, what was it? He was managing a hotel or something like that. but he was very much into this, asking questions. These people are inquisitive.
Yeah.
You know, the Hancocks of the world, the Anthony Wests, you know, the Eric Van Donigen. They were asking questions and they couldn't answer those questions. And when they went to the general, you know, what the scientists or the general population was saying, the so-called experts or authority, you know, the answers that they got did not seem that jive. They didn't make sense,
Yeah.
right? And so they went out looking for their own answers, and they have created wonderful careers of discoveries, and it's led their lives in a constant trend that way. They must have had tremendous lives, these guys, you know, the adventurers looking for things. You know, you got to have guts to go into the pyramid, even today, because if you're a little claustrophobic, there's a video that shows you the Great Pyramid of Egypt like never before. It was just released like months ago. And if you're a little claustrophobic,
maybe we can link it on the description.
Yeah.
On this video.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to check it out.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. And there's the guy that put it out. It's a study by two university people, and I think Ancient Architects has it out.
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, we can link it. It's a wonderful thing.
So
there's also, you know, this guy named Jimmy from Bright Insight.
Oh yeah.
He
He's
is
got good
just
stuff.
a wealth of knowledge. And every time I listen to this kid, I mean, he's young, but man, and you know, there's just a lot of kids like this that are very sharp, intelligent. And in his past, one of the jobs that he used to do was research for a company, I believe. And now he's using all that skill in
Sure.
research to find all this stuff. And he goes into Google stuff and he finds pictures and stuff that
Yeah.
maybe were taken in 1909
Wow.
and then put aside. And nobody, but once you take it and you put it on the internet, everything. So, you know, he's got a picture of the top of the Sphinx where there's actually a circular hole. And nobody knew about it. And it's not that he discovered it because it was there before, but he's bringing it to light.
Right.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, that's fantastic. Also,
we need
behind the
people like
ear
that.
of this, there was this Russian kid that talked about hiding something in plain sight, and he talked about I think the left ear of the Sphinx has an opening, and nobody knew it. It was there. Now that he mentioned it, and nobody knows where this kid is now. Okay?
Oh really?
Yeah, nobody knows. The kid has disappeared. Now, he would be a man now, but there is actually an opening, you know? And like they say, you know, underneath the left paw of the Sphinx, there's a space that nobody has been able to check out,
Excavator, yeah.
and supposedly has all the knowledge of humanity there. So, you know, all this kind of stuff.
The Hall of Records.
The Hall of Records. And
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation. But one thing I liked about I like Jimmy. You also introduced me to him, and he just questions, right? What we're let's say history tells us one thing, and then he goes a little deeper in questions. And I think that's the same thing with Hancock. But one thing about the show on Netflix,
Ancient Apocalypse.
One thing about it is that he goes around the world, and the story is very similar in different parts of the world in terms of that the myth or the legend based on that culture of some massive rains, floods, and then everyone gets wiped out, and then someone comes and teaches them, passes this knowledge to them. All of these different parts of the world had that same story. So I think that it's kind of cool how he takes the real location and the he goes from Cholula, Mexico to, he was in Turkey quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
And he even did Manta. Is it the islands of Malta? I mean, amazing the stuff that he's showing on the documentary.
Hey, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, he can't. I mean, it's only like 8 episodes or something.
Yeah, I mean, he could probably do a series
Oh,
that would take, a few
yeah, he could do a
years.
bunch of them.
Oh yeah, well he's been traveling the world for 30 years, I think.
Oh, he went
Um,
to the Jiminy, the steps underwater.
yeah,
Um,
that's in Japan. The
no,
yacht.
no, I think it was the there were those
Oh, you're
big
talking.
blocks underwater
Oh
in
yeah,
Malta. I think it was
yeah. That's
Bimini Road.
yeah, the
The
Bimini
Bimini
Road.
Road. Some of these things that is why I think I always used to think why wasn't I taught this in school? But then the other side is school isn't meant necessarily to make you question in that way because these things are still unsolved.
Correct.
You know, so it's after school you have to research these things after, I mean, unless you find a class with an amazing professor who's teaching you some of these very interesting and questionable topics. But that's one thing that I really liked about the show was how he tied in the legend with the real um, site. He says, "Look, this site was built like he went into was it Göbekli Tepe or was
Göbekli
it
Tepe.
or the islands
Palangunam.
yeah,
Yeah,
or Gigantia or something. I had
yeah.
never heard of that one. And there's these huge structures. Who built these things? And the Göbekli Tepe was interesting because that one predates civilization, I believe, or what we knew a civilization to be, right? Which was the ability to um, be in one location and plant and grow, instead of a
Yeah,
hunter
we were
gatherer.
supposed to be hunter gatherers,
Yeah.
but yeah, we built this thing, and then we purposely buried
They
it
buried it.
on purpose.
Why did they
Why
bury
do
it?
you bury
Yeah.
something like this on purpose?
I thought it was cool. He says that it could have been like a time capsule, right? They built the structure, they used it for ceremonial purposes or whatever. It's a temple, and then they buried it and moved on. I thought that was really interesting.
Oh, it's super interesting. We don't have the answers, and that's what keeps you going. You're looking for the answers, and that's what makes it fun
Yeah.
in my case. And there's so much to learn. My Lord, you know, um, if you s- there's a documentary where this mathematician is talking about the equations that you can actually find uh, in the structure of the building of the Great Pyramid,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's way over my head. It's called the golden number, and they show you how this number appears time and time again, and how it's synchronized to the equinoxes and lunar uh, uh, specific pointers, and 1 degree, uh, less than 1 degree off from true north. I mean, it's incredible,
It's amazing.
incredible. Look, it's 13 acres, and it's flattened and balanced to less than 3/4 of an inch. We can't do that without
13
lasers.
football fields, right?
13 yeah, 13 football fields,
Yeah.
excuse me. And we can't do that nowadays without the use of lasers. So if they were supposed to have copper, utensils, chisels, and this and that, how did they do that?
Yeah.
How do you check that out? I mean, it's
What
incredible.
What do you think about the Egyptians, all their beliefs about the underworld and that? The, correct me if I get it wrong, but when you die, you get judged based on the life you lived, and if you lived a good life, then you're able to, pass on, and if not, you have to live in this underworld or something like that, and and a lot of their things their characters were like half human, half animal. What do you think that's about? Just, what's your best guess on that?
It's a guess. I don't know. I, I believe that there's something after we go, wherever it is that we go. And I think that potentially these folks had somewhat the answer. Okay, where does our spirit go?
Hmm.
Okay, when we pass. Okay, is that it? Is this, we're going to be here just 70, 80 years, 90 years for some of us, And then when we go, where do we go? It's that it. It's that simple. So I believe there's something else. I'm not quite sure what it is. Um, and what they had was something called the Book of the Dead.
Mm.
And then everybody that was anybody would spend quite a bit of their fortune to put together a Book of the Dead with a scribe and a priest. And the priest, after you died and you had a good life, I believe that what you had challenges that you went through, and they prepared you for those challenges that would come after dying, uh, with certain things that they would put in your tomb. And I don't know all of the details, but you would be able to go through corridors, and if you were a pharaoh, you were a king to a god, and so you would come out the other end, hopefully uh, good,
Mm.
and continue to live in the spirit world, and that was their idea. Um, it's very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. And we would be completely oblivious to some of this stuff unless the chance discoveries that have happened through history. Like, for example, the Rosetta Stone. We were breaking our heads. You have no idea. There's a couple of documentaries and many, many movies. We're breaking our heads trying to figure out how to read the hieroglyphics. Okay? And there was no way to break it. We had some ideas and consonants that repeat themselves, so they were trying to figure this out, but we weren't making any progress. And then we find the Rosetta Stone. There's a joke between the Frenchman and the English, because the English, apparently, I'm not trying to, this is a joke, and this is how I took it from what I read, so I could be wrong, but the English are very practical and pragmatical, but and the French are a little bit more into the philosophy and history of things, maybe slightly more than the English. And so somebody was saying, thank God that a Frenchman found the Rosetta Stone, because if an Englishman had found it, they would have used it, to build a building somewhere, and never mind the scratches on it. Maybe they're just throwing rocks at each other, just like
Yeah.
some of the Hispanic countries do in fun.
They don't
right?
get along too well, I don't think. The French and
Potentially,
the
yeah.
well,
Well, they're right next to each other, so to speak. So, but what happened was that the Rosetta Stone, there was this guy named Champollion, and there was another very famous Englishman, and they were both head to head trying to figure it out. And when the Rosetta Stone was found, okay, it was in 3 forgotten languages, but one of them we knew how to read it, and the hieroglyphics were on the other side. So they were able at that point to translate that forgotten language that we still knew how to read it, to translate the hieroglyphics. And this was just, I don't know exactly when this happened, but I'm going to take a shot in the 1800s or something like that. Okay?
is that
So
the
it's not that long ago. That's what
No,
I'm
it's
saying.
not.
It's not that long ago.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we'd be oblivious to what some of these things are saying.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Is that the one that they put out open source? Is that one?
No, no. I think that it's in the London Museum.
The Rosetta Stone?
Yeah, the National Museum. I think is the first thing that you see when you enter the National London Museum. It's there. It's not that big. It's maybe the size of this table, something like that.
And that is
and-
basically
Oh my God, that opened the door for everything, for
interesting.
understanding all of this stuff. Just that rock, because it was in 3 different languages. It's crazy.
Who-
just
do you
like,
know-
just
who
like,
put that together? Was
no.
that the
No, it was, they were, it was a dig that they were doing, and they found this rock, and it was remnants of maybe what some people say is it might have been like a stela. A stela, in the old days, you would do a stela, which was a big, big rock. It was like putting a newspaper in the corner, announcing your deeds or whatever. So this was something like this. and I believe. But that that's not that long ago.
No.
It's just like the cuneiform writing, they found in Iraq in the library of Ashurbanipal. I mean, I'm murdering the name, but and there were like, I want to say like 20,000 tablets in one and 30,000 in the other.
Wow.
And there's very, very few people in the world that can read that kind of language. And these people, what they did was they got a clay tablet and they wrote that it's like indentured in the type of writing. I forget what the name is. It's called cuneiform, and then they put it in the ovens and they blazed it and it stayed for eternity. Well, they found that stuff because the climate is arid and stuff like that, so it was perfect for preservation. And they found like 20,000 tablets in one and like 30,000 in the other. And it's telling you the everyday life of those people way back then. They had the same problems we have.
Yeah.
Children that don't want to study, children that don't want to work, they don't want to go to school, what do I do? Stuff like that. But then they have other very important matters in there, And so to me, it's fascinating. I do it for fun.
Yeah.
I've wasted a lot of time of my life reading that stuff.
No, I don't think it's wasted. I don't think it's, and I think we
Right.
can learn from it too.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, because there's a lot of stories and fables or mythology that comes with it, and I think that a lot of them have good messages.
I think so too.
You know.
And I love it. I mean, I'm not gonna stop. It's my part of. It's one of the hobbies that I have. You
Yeah.
know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember there was one thing that was put up to open source, and I think it at the Huntington Library. It was
Yeah, that was yes. So the guy had the what do you call these? They were the discovers. There were parcels.
it wasn't the scrolls.
The scrolls. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. He had it and he opened it up.
The Dead Sea Scrolls.
What happened was that when they found them, this little shepherd boy threw a rock and into a cave, because there's a lot of them over there, or into an opening. He didn't even know it was a cave. It was into an opening, and he heard something shatter. Like glass. And then he remembered, and he came back the next day, and they found all these bases, and they had these scrolls in them, and it ended up being the Dead Sea Scrolls. And what happened there is that for the first few years, they only let a handful of people go through them and try to decipher them, and these were historians and so forth that could read that kind of language in the way it was written. I don't know, maybe there was 20 of them, maybe 30 of them. But somehow this professor over in the Huntington Library here in California had taken pictures, or it was stored there. And the best thing that he did to the world was open source it. Because if we take this is my own personal opinion now, okay? My own personal opinion. I have nothing against these folks that have tremendous knowledge on all these lost or forgotten languages, and they're trying to decipher, and they do their best. The problem is that we've got 20, 30 people looking at it, as opposed to maybe 10,000 people. And anytime you open source something, you have more eyes, more brains, more capacity. And not only do you get it done faster, but maybe a little bit more accurately.
Sure.
Because we're depending on, at the end of the day, the opinion of 20 or 30 people, because they had to match these pieces. If you look at, I've looked at the, some of the studies that they've done, and I've looked at them, and sometimes it's like putting a puzzle together. And you can tell that this is the beginning and this potentially is the end, but what was in the middle? So you're kind of guessing what was in the middle. So if somebody else comes along and says, wait a minute, It's actually not that way. It's this way. And so now open sourcing something, it's like they open source, I think, the Voynich manuscript.
Hmm.
I think they open sourced it. Yeah, hopefully I'm not making a mistake on that. But that's one of the things that you can do so that,
You
people,
get more
oh my
opinions. Yeah.
God.
Well, that
And you
was
got
an
these young
interesting
kids
one.
that are good in computers. They can manipulate the
Yeah.
computers so that they can put certain things together to see if they match or don't match or whatever. Different ideas.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. We're all in this together, period. End of discussion. I mean, this is one earth. It belongs to all of us. We're all in here. And the history that happened, whether it land, that's the other thing I was going to tell you. It doesn't matter if the pyramids are in Bosnia, Mexico, Egypt, um, Afghanistan, it doesn't matter. All of that, it's something that belongs to the world, you know?
Right, right. And that's the thing. You have to put the pride to the side and
Right,
put the ego aside and say, hey, the world should see these things. And like that professor did, or whoever was looking up the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he open sourced it,
exactly.
and we were able to decipher it.
Yeah.
So,
And, if we figure out what happened in the past, we're going to have a better shot at our future.
sure.
Period. End of discussion.
I think that's a solid way to end it up.
Okay.
End this one.
I talked too much today.
Cool.
Thank you.